Hi, everyone. Hope you are all well. I am drowning in administrative work. So I'm working from home today and I've been working all morning. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take myself a little break and, go on another tangent for my Ghanaian people. So, on today's tangent, we are going to talk about Agyapadie, right? Inheritance. Or as I've been calling it, the inheritance that, cost us our childhood sometimes. You know, there's something I feel like many first generation Ghanaians have been whispering for years, but we've never really had like sat down to say it out loud. Agyapadie, aka inheritance, like became a dream our parents like chased with their entire chest. And, somehow we, the children, I feel like ended up, paying the heaviest price. For so many like immigrant kids, the story usually begins like this, right? Our parents left home in pursuit of a better life. But somewhere along the journey, somewhere along the journey, the better life turned into like this mission, a responsibility, a debt, a burden, a badge of honor, competition, a curse, and sometimes a trap, really. And suddenly the child, I feel like we become the bridge, the backup plan, the emotional support, like the peacekeepers, and sometimes the sacrifice. Like I feel like the uncomfortable truth, like many people don't want to admit in our community, is that like many of us grew up watching our parents just send every single dollar home, building homes they'll probably never live in, just funding projects they never saw, trusting family members that just saw them as walking ATMs, work 2 jobs, sometimes 3 to keep up, live paycheck to paycheck abroad, but look successful back home because, you can't be abroad and be struggling, apparently. And I feel like meanwhile, they're doing all of that. Like greedy relatives in Ghana act like just money grows on trees over here. And I don't even want to say greedy because some of them are genuinely struggling. And, like if somebody is struggling and I'm in a position to help and I can help, I do. I always have. But I feel like sometimes we enable some of these situations. But anyway, that's another tangent for another day. On this current tangent, though, yeah, like just send it. You make it back. How many times did some of our parents hear that? They did this like your parents weren't sacrificing their health, their peace, and sometimes even their marriages, really, to keep these projects, going. And while this was happening, we became, sometimes I feel like the ones soothing the stress and not always getting like, anyway, that's another tangent that I'll save too. But but I feel like, again, some of us, I've always said this, some of us were like parentified before we even knew like the word existed. And it's not because our parents like didn't love us, but because they were, I feel like, overwhelmed, undersupported, and carrying expectations bigger than really any one person should have to. And I feel like, like the pressure to help the family back home sometimes became like just a silent weight, You know, like in many Ghanaian homes, I've often said, I'm like, you don't just grow up, you inherit like responsibility, you inherit the dream, the burden, the silence, like you inherit the unspoken rules that you must help back home. Your success like must stretch across, you know, the Atlantic Ocean. I usually call it the Ghana tax. You all of you pay them, you know it too. Um, but and with that comes, you know, sometimes guilt, pressure, fear, like resentment, shame, and sometimes even anger. You know, because like sometimes it feels like every win you have has to stretch from Chicago to Kumasi, from New York to Accra, Toronto to like it has to stretch somewhere, you know. And if you ever say like I'm struggling, you'll hear like at least many people have shared with me like, you know, and I've seen it too. But you live abroad, how can you struggle? Like me, I never, you know, if you speak to any of my family members back home that I'm in touch with, they'll tell you, listen, don't expect me to fake the funk for you, you know, because I'm abroad and no, we are all struggling up in here. It's hard. You know, and I've always made that very, very clear, like to my family back home, like, you know, at least the ones that I'm in touch with. My dear cousin that passed away, God bless her. Her and I used to have these conversations, you know, over here. Like, I remember me struggling, you know, on whether I was going to be able to stay here or leave. And, you know, sometimes the conversations were like, oh, you know, land. And, you know, I used to tell him like, man, I am struggling over here. I don't know whether I'm coming or staying, and you're telling me land, you know? So like, again, I've always been just very honest about like where I stand in the community, because I feel like it helps to create that boundary. Like, don't expect me to fake the funk. We're struggling. If I can help, I'll gladly help. If I can't, we struggling, you know? But I feel like because of that whole like pressure to, you know, help family back home, sometimes we learn to suffer quietly, to smile loudly, and to pretend we're okay. Meanwhile, it's like, you struggling, you know? Anyway. And I feel like another thing that has been on my mind, like the financial reality that I feel like sometimes nobody talks about, right? Many of our parents have been here for decades, busting their butts. One thing my people know how to do is work hard. That we do. Busting their butts. And here, the place that they're like established in, they don't really have much to show for it because they've been so busy, you know, about Agyapadie, and not necessarily learning like what other opportunities can this country that I worked so hard to be part of, what opportunities can it offer me that can allow me to be stable over here, meanwhile still, you know, like building something back home, right? But I feel like sometimes the focus just becomes so much on that they miss out on all the great opportunities, you know, over here, like real estate, you know, a lot of our parents don't have real estate over here, no savings, no retirements, like no safety net, no generational wealth, because like every single dollar that they had left over went to so-called Agyapadie, that's like creating all kinds of issues, you know, in families. And, you know, again, maybe it's because of my like, you know, experience in real estate. But sometimes I used to think about this, like, this is insane. You are working your butt off over here and you're just handing the money to somebody else who's like using it to build their own project, have all kinds of excuses. You know, it's creating problems between the bank. It doesn't have to be this hard. You know what? Call me. I have a lot of contacts back home for new construction. Yeah, call me. Because It doesn't make sense to me. You know, things that you could be making payment plans to, like, there are so many opportunities. And I feel like because, a lot of our parents, when they come here, they don't take the chance to like learn, not even take a chance to learn, but they don't dive into like financial literacy, over here, and how some of the people here have been able to create the very things that they're trying to build back home. So sometimes it's so backwards to me. But yeah, that's something that I wish our community would just, do better, because a lot of these like Agyapadie projects, I feel like sometimes they just never even materialize. Some of them worked the butts off their entire lives for a house that like they didn't even get to live in before, they passed away. And I think that's one thing too, like that we in our community, we have to do, talk about. Just our parents are so busy working that they don't, they're forgetting that real Agyapadie. Like when I think of Agyapadie, anyway, we'll get into that later, but they're missing the point of what, in my opinion, is real Agyapadie, real inheritance. Like, for me, real inheritance, I mean, don't get me wrong, I work my butt off as much as I do because I want to be able to leave my kids with something. After all, we all worked so hard to be part of this, country, be part of the American dream. And the American dream looks like different for all of us. But like I was saying, I don't say that to neglect that fact, but like for me, real Agyapadie is, again, I want to leave my kids all of that in a bag of chips, right? But for me, real Agyapadie, real inheritance is, just being emotionally present for my kids, being physically present for my kids, doing activities with my kids. I always tell my kids, I'm like, man, some of y'all might need therapy, having a mother like me. But, one thing they can't say is that they haven't had adventures. Like we go on adventures. We, now that the store has been open, anyway, we're not able to do it as much, but it's something that I enjoy. For me, that is real Agyapadie, building memories with my children. And I feel like for so many of our parents, the focus becomes so much on like the material Agyapadie, not because they don't love us, not because, they're bad people. No, that's not what I'm saying. But the focus becomes so much on that they lose like the points. They lose sight of what the real Agyapadie to me is. Like take your grandkids to the museum, take them to the park, go on vacation, enjoy yourself. Spend some of that money that you're working your butt off for, like you can relax and enjoy the American dream that you fought so hard for, and I feel like a lot of our, parents as first generation, immigrant children, specifically today, honing on, my people, Ghanaian people. But yeah, I feel like we lose track of what is at the core of it, because for me, I could leave my kids like the biggest house. If they don't have a good relationship with each other, that's not like Agyapadie to me. If they don't know how to love on each other, that's not Agyapadie to me. If they don't know how to enjoy themselves, that's not Agyapadie to me. So anyway, this is where my brain works a little bit differently. But yeah, that's not Agyapadie to me. And I feel like a lot of our parents sometimes put the emphasis on that and not. So yeah, that's where we need to, there's definitely a lot of room for just improvement, and, I'm not saying this to blame our parents. At least for me, one of the things that it's given me a lot of empathy for my parents in their own parenting journey is that, like, I think I have it worse. I can only imagine what, like, things looked like for them. So that's, for me, I've gotten a lot of peace with some of it, because, again, they're dealing with their own, at least our generation have the words for some of what we're feeling. They don't even have the words to describe why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And so I'm not saying this to blame our parents, but it's the truth. Our parents did they did the best they could with what they knew. Leaving Ghana or, any African country, or, anybody migrating here, like, it takes a lot of courage. That, most people would never understand. Their intentions were pure, is still pure. But I feel like, just somewhere along the line, this got lost, anyway. And again, back to our parents, I feel like you cannot build a dream in two places while neglecting yourself in both. Agyapadie, like, became a mission, but never like a conversation, a tradition, but never a boundary, a responsibility, but never a partnership. Like, some of these children that you, like, I'm building Agyapadie for, they don't even want to live there because you're not talking to them about what they want. The people that you're trying to. So yes, like, being able to have these kind of conversations with your children, that is real Agyapadie. That is real Agyapadie, anyway, to me. So I feel like, because of all of that, sometimes, like, not sometimes, but we're now, it's like we're raising our own children while still, like, emotionally and financially, sometimes, raising our children, our parents and ourselves. But one thing that I've been reflecting on, like, I'm really proud of the new generation, immigrant children. Like, I feel like, we are, like, we allow ourselves to rest, to say no, invest where we can, like, protect our peace, build our legacy. Just, we are allowing, I feel like, inheritance differently, and that matters. I feel like the newer generation understands, like, inheritance isn't just land, or, like, not just a house in Ghana, not just a project, someone is mismanaging. But I have to do another post on that, because in real estate I saw a lot that I was like, my people, we got to do better. Anyway, back to this tangent still. I feel like inheritance is emotional safety. It's mental health. It's financial literacy. It's boundaries. It's healing, honesty, accountability. It's wisdom. It's courage. Like, we want to give our children a different kind of Agyapadie, at least for me. One that won't cost them their childhood. So anyway, tangent over. Here is a few reflection questions for you. I would love to get some feedback, from you. I did YouTube because, I'm like, oh, it allows, like, comments, and because I like long videos, I was like, oh, best platform to, I guess, share my tangents. But anyway, back to my reflection questions for you. What did Agyapadie or inheritance mean in your household? And how did it shape you? Did you become an emotional or financial parent before you became an adult? And who benefited from your parents' sacrifices, and who paid the price? Oh, another question too that I was thinking about. Like, what financial or emotional burdens are you still carrying that were never, like, really yours to carry? And what boundaries do you wish like your parents had set for themselves, especially in dealing with family back home? Okay, thanks for listening.